Yo guys, racing F123 with a sim racing wheel is one of the best ways to increase your immersion in this year's game. And one of the most recognised companies within the racing wheel space is Fanatec. In this video, I'm going to run through my recommended optimised wheel settings for all Fanatec racing wheels in F123. I'm going to show you the best force feedback settings for the CSL DD and DD Pro, as well as the DD1 and DD2. Now, I'm not going to cover older Fanatec wheels such as the CSL Elite and the Club Sport wheel, simply because I don't have them, so I can't actually test with them. One thing that's worth noting before I jump into the actual force feedback settings themselves is if you're racing on PC, I'd highly recommend downloading the Fanatec control panel, as this will allow you to update your wheel's firmware. If you're racing with a console, an Xbox or a PlayStation compatible wheel, then you don't need to do this step. But for those PC users, the Fanatec software can be downloaded from their site. Now, you don't actually need the Fanatec software to update the wheel settings themselves, because Fanatec are quite unique in that most of their steering wheels actually come with a screen on them. So you can tune the Fanatec wheel settings directly from your steering wheel. And I'd highly recommend actually changing the Fanatec tuning settings, because they can have a really big impact on how your wheel actually feels. And I will show you my recommended settings for Fanalab and for the Fanatec tuning menu a little bit later on in this video. But first, I'm going to look at the F123 settings, so you can quickly jump into F123 and copy these settings over. Now, this video is more based on our recommended force feedback settings, but if you want a deep dive video into what each setting does, the calibration menu, how to set up a wheel, go ahead and watch our how to set up a racing wheel video and wheel settings guide, because in that video I cover every single wheel setting and calibration setting in a lot more detail. So after watching that, you should know exactly what to change to adjust your force feedback to your own personal preference. But jumping back to F123 and our recommended Fanatec settings, you'll see the settings that I'm using on screen now. And this is for the CSL DD with the boost kit, so 8 Newton meters. Now, with the GT DD Pro being almost identical, you can use these exact settings for the GT DD Pro as well. And if you don't have the boost kit, if you're running the CSL DD or GT DD Pro in 5 Newton meter form, I'd recommend increasing the vibration force feedback up to 95 instead of the 90 I've got it set at. If on the other hand you're running a DD1, I'd lower the setting right down to 65, and if you're running a DD2, I'd lower it down to 60. And this is simply because these two wheelbases are much stronger, so they don't need as much of the force feedback strength. Next, you'll see that I've got the on-track effects to 30, and this is designed to allow enough detail from the road to come through without overcrowding the force feedback. Again, if you're using a more powerful DD1, you could look to lower this to about 15, and the same for a DD2. The rumble strip and off-track effects are much more down to personal preference, but I like them to be not too overpowering. So I've set the rumble strip effects on the CSL DD for 30 and the off-track effects for 20. But on a DD1 or DD2, I lower these a little bit to 25 and 20. Finally, you should make sure your wheel damper is set to 0, because you don't need any of this with Fanatec direct drive wheelbases. This is more for kind of cheaper gear driven or belt driven racing wheels. And that's all you need to really change in F123. You can change your button mapping as well, but there shouldn't be anything to do in the calibration menu really. But now I can jump into the Fanalab settings and the tuning menu settings to show you what I'm running for the CSL DD. And I'm going to flash those settings on screen now. I'm not going to run through each of these settings and what they do. Instead, I'd recommend pausing the video so you can then copy them across to your control panel, your tuning menu or Fanalab. And these settings are specific for the CSL DD or GT DD Pro. On the DD1 DD2, there are a different set of settings which I'm going to flash on screen now. So again, I'd recommend pausing the video, copying these over, but basically what either of these settings do, either for the CSL DD or the more powerful DD1 DD2, is just make the force feedback feel a little bit more realistic when you're driving the really fast F1 cars. And that's going to do it for our recommended Fanatec wheel settings for F123. I'm intrigued to know what racing wheel you guys are actually using for F123. Are you using a Fanatec base or a newer Moser base, something else, maybe a Logitech? Let me know in the comments below what you're using. And also consider subscribing as well. I'm dropping daily F123 videos and sometimes multiple videos a day, so hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to be alerted when I drop a new video. But for now guys, enjoy these settings and I will see you on track.